How's it going, everyone? Today I'm reviewing something a little bit different than my usual content. This is actually a tent review. It's the Naturehike P series, or the professional series 2-person tent. So my brother and I just got back from a trip with a couple of our friends, and we took this tent and another tent from the same company, the Mongar 2, but this one, the P series, has almost no reviews. So before we headed out on this trip, my brother recommended that we get this tent, so we got it for about $60 and took it on our trip. So let's talk about the conditions that we were in. So we camped out for about 3 days at Zion National Park with our friends. And to test this tent out, our friends slept in it every single night. We had a pretty wide variety of temperatures over those 3 days and nights. The nights were hitting about the high 30s, the low 50s in Fahrenheit. And during the day, we were hitting temperatures between the 60s and 70s. There was also a lot of wind. I think it was hitting about the teens in terms of speed. But something to note is that we did not see any sub-freezing temperatures or any precipitation while we were out there. Now let's talk about the specs of this tent. So first up, this tent has 70001 aluminum tent poles, a 210T polyester body with a PU2000 waterproof coating. And very importantly, the tent weighs in just underneath 5 pounds. The only accessory that we really noticed that was missing from this tent was a ground sheet, or like a ground tarp, something that you put underneath the body of the tent. But for around $60 for this whole tent, this wasn't that surprising. We ended up just using a Mylar blanket or a space blanket to put it as the ground sheet, but you can also get a legitimate ground sheet for around $15 to $30. There are also 3- and 4-person varieties of this tent, which we haven't used, and the P series tents are 3-season tents. Of the entire body of this tent, it's almost fully mesh, but then the rainfly, which is what covers the tent body, comes all the way to the ground, covering the entire body of the tent. There are also 2 vents on opposite sides of the tent for airflow, and then there are asymmetric doors on the other sides of the tent. Once we were out at our camping area and we set up the tent, we noticed that there were some loose threads in certain areas of the tent. Some of them we saw on the Velcro, but overall the construction of the tent seemed pretty solid. Nothing on the tent was falling apart over those 3 days, and we also didn't see any light poking through any holes in the tent. Now, our friends who used it said they slept well in it and it was pretty comfortable, and they also said it was pretty comfortable during the day when the temperatures were getting pretty high. There were 3 notable issues that they had with the tent though. The first thing was that the zippers, when they were trying to close it from the inside of the tent, it was a bit annoying. It would get caught on certain parts of the tent. For example, this little red ribbon on the inside of this zipper cover. Another thing they noted was that the tent overall seemed a bit small. Now, this, I believe, is attributed to how it slopes up towards the top. It's a bit more angled, so it seems smaller in general, but I think the base of the tent is about the same size as the other tent that my brother and I were using, which seemed bigger in general, but it had the same base size. It's just that it was not as sloped towards the top. The third thing that they noted was that this color of the tent seemed to attract bugs. There are different colors for the tent available on Amazon, so in general, I would recommend the green variety of this tent, just because any bright color is really going to attract any bugs. Now, as I was mentioning before, I was comparing some of the traits of this tent to the Mongar 2, which is the other tent that my brother and I were using while we were out there in Zion. On Amazon, this is a really high reviewed tent, and it's a standout tent from Naturehike, but there are a couple notable differences from the P series tent. First up, the Mongar 2 is made of a ripstop nylon, which gives it a slightly lighter construction and it's a bit more durable. It has Y-beam tent stakes, which in general are a bit more durable and not as likely to bend. The P series tent stakes, on the other hand, came with these aluminum tent stakes, which were really easy to bend, especially the ground that we were putting into, which is mostly hard dirt. The Mongar 2 also came with a ground sheet. Now, as I was saying before, the frame of the Mongar 2 is more vertical, so it does not slope in as much as the P series tent, which gave it the feeling that it had more space overall inside of the tent. So in general, these differences between the P series and the Mongar 2 made the Mongar 2 a bit more lighter, more durable, and also it should be more rainproof, although we did not get to test that out. The Mongar 2 comes in at about $160 for the tent, and this is also a 2-person tent. You might find cheaper versions of the Mongar 2 online. The difference will be that the material won't be that ripstop nylon, instead it'll go back to that 210T polyester, the same one that the P series is using. Now let's talk about condensation, something that I also noted was pretty important to tent goers. For the P series tent, we didn't find any condensation on the interior of the tent, but we did find some between the rainfly and the interior tent. This isn't that concerning though, it seems pretty normal, and so there wasn't any serious water issues like water dripping down on anyone or anything like that. So just a couple things I wanted to note for those who are watching. Again, we did not get to test out any rain issues with this tent, so I'm not sure if there are any issues or if this is a good buy for that. I would look for someone else who might review the P-Series tent. If it was any of our guesses though, it would probably do fine in any light to moderate rain, but heavy rain might be a bit of a struggle for the tent. Now another thing is that Zion is fairly low in humidity. It's about 15 to 30%. So something that you might find in a more humid area is that there's going to be more condensation buildup between your interior tent and rainfly. Another thing is temperatures. We didn't really get to test this in sub-freezing temperatures or above 75 degrees, so anything above that or below that. So for anyone who might use it above 75, I don't think it'll be a big deal. I think this will be fine, but for sub-freezing, I'm not really sure. Someone else should probably test that before you get this tent. So let's talk about my final thoughts for this tent. So for a tent between $60 and $90, I would say that this is the perfect tent. And the tent, with its performance, the materials, and the construction, it overall performed really well. Now again though, I would recommend the green version of this just because of the bright colors attracting those bugs. If you want something that's above that $90 range, then I would recommend looking at the Mongar 2, which was that other tent that we were using. It's $160 and it's also from Naturehike, but honestly, having personally used it, I thought it was really nice. If you want to consider another tent, then just make sure that the materials are good. Look for something that's maybe D20 ripstop nylon, something like that. Something that you know will hold up, and definitely check the reviews. Anyways, I hope you guys liked this content. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions down in the comments below, and if you want me to test anything else, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Peace.